Okay, I'll just start with a prayer and then we will start with our sessions. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I welcome all the students of VIT, my current students, past students who have attended what we used to teach as philosophy course in first year. But we never had a course that would take the theme ahead. So, we just had one course and we would stop with that. So that is where I also thought that, we should have some continuation and try to learn some more topics based on Indian philosophy and ethics. So what I have done now is, this is a very short course. We are only going to have 6 sessions. Starting today, tomorrow, and next week, Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday. So 6 topics we will be discussing. There is a connection between all these topics. And I'm going to keep it quite short and not kind of give a very long talk. So maybe maximum around 45 minutes I'll try to speak. And then we will try to take some questions. Okay, so that's the plan. So I have titled this theme as Gita for Life because I'm taking themes based on Bhagavad Gita, but they are for life, as in we are going to take those themes which have a lot of practical relevance in our life. Because interestingly, the Gita is a book which is called by several commentators as both Moksha Shastra as well as Vyavahara Shastra. So in Sanskrit, Moksha means for liberation and Vyavahara means how to live in this world. Vyavahara, we say in Hindi, right? Vyavahara. So because it is Vyavahara as well, there are several themes in the Gita which have a lot of practical application in our day-to-day life. And one such theme that we are going to start with today is called as duality. Okay, so the theme is called as duality. In Sanskrit, the term used is Dvandva. Dvandva means duality, right? So what is this duality? How does it impact us in our daily life and so on? That is what we are going to see today. So I'll begin with this verse from the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is from the 2nd chapter, text number 14. I put the text on the screen as well. Matra sparshastu kaunteya Shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama apayino anityastam stitikshasva bharata. So Krishna speaks this to Arjuna where he says, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception or scan of Bharata and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Okay, so what Krishna is saying here in this particular text is that life in general is about these dualities. Duality means what? Like you see in this verse, Krishna is saying happiness and distress. Okay, so there is happiness, there is distress. And sometimes even the happiness is not pure happiness. That happiness also has some distress component. So please try to understand, when we say happiness and distress, it doesn't mean 2 different things. In the same thing, the other is also there. In happiness, there is distress. And in distress also, there is some pleasure one could get. So this is like winter and summer. So the example of winter and summer is given because there are some things about summer that all of us like. Maybe we get mangoes to eat. So we all like summer for that, ice cream and so on. But then there are some things we may not like so much. It's so hot and, in some places it may be very humid as well, always sweating and so on. Similarly, winter, one may like winter for some reasons and one may not like for some reasons. In winter, generally the appetite is very good, so you can digest more food, etc. However, it's kind of chill, so we tend to be a little lethargic sometimes. We don't want to move out. We don't want to get up so easily and so on. So the point is, whether it is summer or winter, both these seasons have their plus and their minus, correct? So it's not that summer is, everything is good about summer and everything is bad about winter. No, it's not like that. There are some advantages here, some disadvantages there. So this is called duality. Okay. And as a solution, Krishna mentions in this verse, Tam Stitikshasva Bharata. Titiksha in Sanskrit means to tolerate. Okay, so Krishna is giving an advice to all of us that one could try to tolerate this duality. So let's try to see more about this today. Okay, so these are the different points that we are going to discuss in the next 40 minutes. Dvandva in Sanskrit, duality is called. And as I have put a picture on the top right of the screen, you can see, as they say in English, caught between a rock and a hard place. Okay, so this is a phrase in English which indicates that both the options are slightly difficult. So what we are going to do today is we are going to start with the definition of duality. What is duality? Then we are going to see the Gita's context. What was Arjuna's duality before the war? Other example from Indian epics, medieval times, even current political times, we will see. What do you mean by duality? Our personal lives as well. Then I will talk about qualities, how even qualities have duality. That's the fourth topic. How to deal with it. So from the fifth onwards, we are going to talk solution perspective. How to deal with duality. What are the pitfalls when we are unable to handle duality? And the take-home message for today. Okay, so this is what is the theme for today. I'll try to keep it, as I said, by 8:45 we should be done, so that I don't extend it too much, right? Yeah. So let's start with the first point, definitions of duality. So first, let's try to understand a basic definition. Okay, so there are several definitions, but the first one is duality can be defined as a flip side to anything in life. Okay, so this is a definition that you can always remember. Everything in life comes with a flip side. Anything, you chose a career, right? You took a particular branch of engineering. You chose a particular college. Okay, you choose a particular company where you work. Maybe later in life you will choose a particular spouse when you get married. Any decision you take, that will have a flip side. Okay. It's never going to happen in life that you can take a decision where everything is rosy and good. That never happens. Okay, that happens only in Bollywood, one may say, where they show that, they show all these unrealistic things, right? Sometimes in terms of how life is. But in reality, life is never like that. There is a flip side to anything that we do. That is a definition of duality. Okay. Another definition is, anything we do, there is pain and pleasure at the same time. Okay, so just like we gave the example earlier of summer and winter. In both the seasons, there are some things good, there are some things troublesome. Okay, any job you take, any career you take, some things will be very nice in it, some things will not be good in it. It is not going to happen that some option is there where there is only pain, or there is another option where there is only pleasure. No, that doesn't really happen in life. It's a mixed bag. Okay, that's a second definition. And the third definition I'm giving here is the gap between decision and consequence. You take a decision and there is a consequence. So, and there is a gap between these two. Generally, we imagine that any decision I take, I will get consequence exactly as I imagined. Okay, that means we imagine duality to not exist in our life, but that does not happen. There will always be a gap. The bigger the gap, the more the duality, between the consequence and the decision, right? Just to give a simple example, someone falls in love and, kind of elopes with the lover, goes away somewhere. They take a decision thinking that, oh, everything will be so nice. It was my lover after all. So we're going to have a good time in life. But the consequences, you cannot imagine how it could be, so it's never going to be picture perfect and rosy for sure. At best, it can be, something close to what you imagined, but with some differences. But in the worst case, it could be something that you never imagined will happen, right? Because the gap is too much. In that case, we say that the duality was very high, so this is how we would say. So these are some basic definitions, right? So going next, right? No, no. What was Arjuna's duality? So let's go into the Bhagavad Gita itself, because we are looking at that as our text. I'm sure all of you know the basic story in Mahabharata, so you will be able to appreciate, this particular point about Arjuna's duality in this particular situation. Just give me a second. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita, so historically, since everybody may know the story, but still I'm just going to briefly talk to you that the Mahabharata is the story of this war between, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So the Pandavas are the 5 brothers whose kingdom has been usurped by Duryodhana and all his friends, all his companions. And, they do various tricks to ensure that the Pandavas don't get their kingdom back. And at one point of time, when it becomes very clear to the Pandavas that they're not going to get their kingdom, there is a war that's about to take place. And when the war is about to take place, both the armies of the Pandavas and the armies of the Kauravas come together in this place called Kurukshetra. And at that point of time, what exactly happens is Arjuna, when he sees Bhishma, and so the war is about to begin, but just before the war begins, Arjuna sees his relatives on both sides. When he sees his relatives on both sides, especially when he sees Bhishma and Drona, so you need to understand the historical context of the Mahabharata, that Bhishma was the teacher of, was the grandfather of Arjuna, whom Arjun really loved very much, and Drona was his teacher. So these 2 people Arjuna loved a lot. So what was happening is recording in progress. Okay, so Arjuna was very much attached to his grandfather and teacher, so he is very reluctant to fight. Okay, so this is the background of the Bhagavad Gita, correct? So the duality of Arjuna is that in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he tells Krishna that how can I fight my grandfather? How can I do that? How do you expect me, Krishna, that I should shoot arrows at my grandpa? Okay, so you see these verses from the 2nd chapter that I have put up. Katam Bhishma Maham Sanke Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubi Pratiyotsyami Pujar Har Arisudana. He says, hey Krishna, this Bhishma and Drona, they are worthy of my worship. How do you expect me to throw arrows at them? So, okay, so this is duality, right? Because there is a decision Arjuna has taken. Initially, the decision he has taken is to come and fight. But when he is about to begin the war, he suddenly becomes conscious that, oh, this war means I will have to shoot at my grandpa and my teacher, which is going to be very difficult for me. So I would rather not do it. Okay, so this is the duality. That means if Arjuna has to fight the war, then he has to kill or attack Bhishma and Drona. Okay, so that is a flip side. Are you understanding? So I said earlier, right? A duality means anything has a flip side. So the flip side for Arjuna to fight this war is that he has to shoot at his grandfather and teacher. That is a flip side. And this Arjuna feels is very difficult for me. That's exactly what he's saying, correct? And if you look at the other verse, I have put up, Eva Muktva Rishikesha Gudakesha Parantapa Nayotseti Govinda Uktva Tushtim Babuvaha. So Arjuna finally he says that, hey Krishna, I cannot fight this war. And he puts his weapons down. Okay, so please try to understand. So if Arjuna fights the war, he has to fight Bhishma and Drona, which is painful for him. So this is the flip side of fighting. Okay, but now what is happening is Arjuna has apparently taken a decision not to fight, but he is not exactly clear about the consequence of not fighting. Okay, so please try to understand this. When you fight, there are certain consequences. When you fight, as in when Arjuna fights, what are the consequences? He has to fight his grandfather and teacher. But if he doesn't fight, there are another set of consequences. Are you getting it? Which are also going to have its own pain, own flip side. That is what Krishna tells Arjuna later in the Gita. Okay, so if you see the verses I have put up, 35, 36, these are from the second chapter, where Krishna is telling, hey Arjuna, you're thinking that you will just run away from you will not fight and you will go away from the battlefield and all your problems will be solved. But Krishna says, I will tell you that by not fighting this battle, some other set of problems are going to come. Are you aware of that? Krishna is asking. Okay. And Krishna is suggesting that those problems will be bigger than this problem. Okay. So current problem of Arjuna is if I fight, I have to fight my grandfather and teacher. But if I don't fight, then what will happen? That Arjuna is not immediately conscious, but Krishna is telling him. So look at the point with Krishna makes. Krishna says, Bhayadranad uparatam mansante tvam maharataha yesham chattam bahumato bhutva yasasi lagam. Krishna says, hey Arjuna, if you don't fight this battle, everybody is going to say that you are a big darpuk. You know, you were afraid of this battle. Bhayadranad uparatam. That means you were afraid of this battle and that is why you went away from here. And whatever high estimation they had about your greatness will all be reduced to ashes. Okay, so Krishna says, Avachya vadamscha bahun davishyanti tavahitaha nindantastava samartyam tato dukkha taram nukyam. Avachya vadamscha means they will speak many unkind words. They will say that there is no such, frightful darpuk person in the world we have seen like this Arjun. That's what everybody will say. Because people will not say that you left the battle because you had love for your grandfather and teacher. They will say that you are such a coward, which is why you ran away. And when you hear that, you will be very much pained in your heart because the fact of the matter is you are not a coward, you are a brave person. Okay. But if you give up the battle right now and go away, people are not going to think very high about you. So I hope all of you are able to understand the duality of Arjuna, which is captured in this particular slide, correct? I'm just repeating the point again. Please try to understand this. If Arjuna fights the war, there is a problem. What is the problem? He has to fight his grandfather and teacher, which is painful to him. But if Arjuna runs away from the war, that is also a decision. What is the consequence of that? The consequence of that is everybody is going to call him a coward. Everybody will say he got frightened looking at this big army and that is why he ran away. And all his reputation will be in ashes. And ultimately that will give him more pain. Right? Why Krishna is saying Tato Dukkha Taram Nukim, this will give you more pain? Because it is a fact, right? Because Arjuna is a brave man. If you call a brave person a coward, then it is very painful for that person. Right? So this is Dvandva. So I hope you are able to appreciate here the example of Arjuna, what Arjuna is facing. Okay. So this is what it means by saying caught between a rock and a hard place. And this is going to happen. This happens with each of us in our life, right? At every juncture of our life, same thing happens. Either you do this, then there are these problems. Or you do this, then there are some other set of problems, right? Anything you take in life that you do, okay, there is Dvandva. Okay, there is a flip side to it, right? And we are all in that way, we are caught in the similar predicament like Arjuna. So generally what happens is we are only thinking about the option that we are currently chosen. We are thinking in line with that. So at that time, we are conscious only about the pitfalls of that. But we are not conscious of the pitfalls of the other thing, which is not in our mind. Like for example, here Arjun, he was thinking about the pitfalls of fighting the battle. He was not thinking about the pitfall of not fighting the battle, which Krishna reminded him. See, these are the pitfalls of not fighting. Are you understanding this point? So similarly with all of us, any decision you take, suppose let's say you're in a particular job. Okay, you want to leave that job and you go to another job. Okay, so currently you may be only conscious about the pitfalls of the current job because you are in that job. So you may be thinking, oh, this job has so many problems. I'm having to work so many hours a day. It gives less money or whatever. You're thinking only about the pitfalls of the current job. But then what about the other option, which you're going to take later? That is also, nothing is a bed of roses in life. So the Gita That's why I'm saying that Gita presents life the way it is. Because life is not, a bed of roses, a romantic experience, a pure romantic experience without any sorrow. It doesn't happen like that, right? So the other option is also going to have its own set of problems, which we are not conscious when we take a decision sometime. And that's exactly what is happening with Arjun here, right? So we are going to, so let's see some more examples before we elaborate this particular theme. So there are so many examples we could take, but I will take some examples from generally either Ramayana or Mahabharata initially, and then speak about examples, which are in our daily experience or life. Okay. So let me start with the Ramayana. So in the Ramayana, one story which brings pain or doubt to many people in their life is how Ram dealt with Sita. Okay, so we all know, if you know the basic story of Ramayana, you would know that Ram, he wins back Sita from Lanka after defeating Ravana, and then he brings Sita back to Ayodhya. But when they come back to Ayodhya, what happens is, and Ram is coronated as a king, and Sita is pregnant as well. So at that time, as a king, what Ram does is he sends spies into the kingdom regularly to find out what people are talking about him, because that's very important for the king to get a feedback about what people are talking. So it turns out that people in the kingdom were gossiping about Ram. They were saying that, what is this king? He has got, his wife was staying in another man's house for 10 months and he has brought her back to his home. I'm not going to be a husband like this. Ordinary people were talking all this stuff. At that time, Ram takes a decision to send Sita to Valmiki Muni's ashram. Okay, he tells Lakshman that take her and drop her there and come back. And then onwards in the story, Ram and Sita are actually separated. Right? Sita is in the Valmiki's ashram, and there she gives birth. She gives birth to the twins, Lava and Kusha. Okay, so this is a story. Now, when you hear the story, at one level, it looks very cruel. How could Ram take a decision like this to banish his wife to the forest, right? Just because somebody was saying something. Okay, now you have to here again understand the Dvandva or the duality. What is the duality here? See, Ram was caught again between a rock and a hard place. What is a rock and a hard place? Either you live happily with your wife, or you be a king where people will respect you. Okay. Unfortunately for Ram, both were not possible. Because if he was going to stay with his wife, people would constantly criticize. Okay. And if he had to ensure that nobody criticizes him, or most people stop criticizing him, then it means that he has to, sacrifice his own personal family life. It was not possible that he can have both. This became the duality for Ram. So what did he choose? He chose the option of being away from Sita, which was painful for him as well, because it's not that he just sent Sita to Valmiki's ashram and he got remarried and he was having a gala time. No, he lived single for the rest of his life, and Sita also lived like that. But then people at least understood that, oh, our king is someone you cannot just gossip about him and expect that he will not do something. So let's be careful about it. So the point here is, so this is Dvandva. Okay, there are two options in life. Both options have its own issues with it. Correct? So giving some other examples. So there are so many examples we could go on and on. I'll just take one or two more examples to highlight this point. So if you see in Mahabharata, there is the story of Kunti. Okay, Kunti is a character in the Mahabharata, very fascinating character. Okay, she gets a blessing, so to speak, from a sage called Durvas, that she can chant a mantra and invite any devata, any god, and obtain a son from him. So can you imagine? It looks quite amazing gift. You can call any devata and get a son from that person. Okay. Now, this is a benediction or a boon that Kunti obtained. Okay, now at the face of it, it looks very exciting. And that's what Kunti also felt. So she immediately saw the sun in the sky and she thought, why not call the sun god, Surya? And let us see what happens. And Surya indeed comes in the story. And as a result of that, Kunti has Karna as her son. Okay. So that benediction which was there, that boon which was there, that blessing which was there, which Kunti got, it did not come without a flip side. Are you getting it? The flip side of that benediction was that Karna was born. And if you see Kunti's life, entire life, she was always thinking about this. Oh, Karna is my son, Arjuna is my son, but unfortunately, both of them don't know each other and they are fighting with each other. Okay. So, but on the other side, that boon also helped Kunti in life. Because later in the story, you see in the Mahabharata that Pandu, her husband, her later when she gets married to Pandu, he's unable to have children with her for some reason. And it is only due to this particular boon that Kunti was able to have all her sons, Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, etc. Okay, so the boon which he had obtained from Durvas was indeed useful. There's no question about it. But it did not come without a flip side. The flip side was Karna, who was born. Can you imagine? So anything, anything we use in our life. So nowadays people talk about technology, right? We all have our mobile phones, devices, etc. None of it comes without its flip side. Okay, we see that people's screen time, so everyone is getting so many benefits using technology. We are having this class because of technology only. But at the same time, this technology comes with its flip side, correct? It comes with its own flip side where people get addicted to it, spend so many hours on the screen, their sleep patterns get disturbed and so on. So anything even nice in the world which you get, something which is very nice, you like it, that also has its own challenge. Okay, so giving another example from the Ramayana, this is a story of the birth of the 4 sons of Dasharatha. Okay, so Dasharatha had 4 sons, Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna. So they were all born at the same time to his 3 queens, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. Of course, Ram was elder among them slightly. Bharata was younger. Generally, one will think that, if when children are born in your home, then you are very happy. And indeed, Dasharatha was happy. But can you imagine that even at the time of birth of his children, Dasharatha had an anxiety in his mind. What was the anxiety? The anxiety was that he had promised Kaikeyi's father that he will make Kaikeyi's son the king in future. Okay, this was at the time when none of the children were born. And Dasharath had no clue that Ram is going to be born in his house as the son of his first wife, Kaushalya. Okay, so Dasharath had given this promise. At that time, he didn't think about the consequence. But when all the children were born, suddenly he thought, oh my God, I gave a word to my father-in-law, Kaikeyi's father, that I will make her son the king. But Ram is indeed elder among all of them. Not only is elder, he's clearly, as per his astrology charts and everything, kind of the best among all the 4. So how is it possible that I will fulfill that promise? So can you imagine? There is birth of children in your family. It is giving you pleasure. At the same time, it is giving some doubts and pain in your heart. So this is called Dondua. Any event in life, it brings both sometimes, right? So it's never going to be easy. Again, if you go to the Mahabharata, the story of the gambling match, gambling is itself a Dondua. When you play dice, I'm sure, we may not gamble per se as per, but I'm sure all of us would have played the game of dice sometimes. So when you throw dice, it is basically Dondua. You don't know what's going to come. And you cannot imagine the consequence of that, right? And that's exactly what happened with Yudhishthir. He started playing the game of dice and they started putting so many things as a bet, and slowly but surely everything went away, right? But at each step in the game, it was not that Yudhishthir was exactly aware what's going to happen in the future. He always had a hope, I want to get something back, but it never happened. Okay, eventually he lost everything, right? And so this way, if you see, there is Dvandva or duality in so many stories that we read. Now let's come to some modern times, political times, to understand the relevance of this topic. So I want to begin with this as an example. So if you take medieval times, if you take Shivaji Maharaj's history, there is this famous story of Tanaji, right? when Shivaji Maharaj asked Tanaji to conquer this fort, which is now known as Sinhagad Fort, right? It was known as Kondana those times. And we all know that Tanaji was actually busy with the wedding of his son Raiba. Okay, so the point is there is Dondua. So there is a decision to be made. Are you going to continue with the wedding of your son Raiba? If you do that, then this project of winning Kondana will get delayed. And we don't know what will happen. When you delay too much, sometimes some decisions, military decisions have to be done immediately. If you delay too much, then maybe the enemy will become more stubborn and it will become even more difficult to win over Kondana. Okay, so but if you go to fight and try to obtain Kondana fort back from the Mughals, from Udayban, who was stationed there, there is a likelihood that you can lose your life. And when you lose your life, you may miss your son's wedding. Are you able to appreciate this point? Both decisions, you do this, you do that. You're again caught between a rock and a hard place. Okay, there is nothing that is. That's why it's actually difficult to make decisions. How they made decisions, we will talk about it later. But I hope you are able to appreciate the dvandva or the duality in Tanaji's mind. But of course, he took a very straightforward decision, saying that Raiba's wedding can wait. I will go to fight Kondana. Okay. So please try to understand. This is going to keep happening again and again. So I was, reading the life of this Vikram Batra, who was one of the heroes in the Kargil war. If you read his life, you will see that when he was fighting that last battle of his life, there were some soldiers who were wounded, who were far away from him. Okay. So he actually tried to save their life. Now you just try to picture yourself in Vikram Batra's position. It's very difficult to picture, but try to. Imagine that, you're in a place and someone is injured, some other soldier is injured. If you help him, if you try to help him, there is a chance that you can also die. But if you don't help him and you just walk away from there, protecting your life, whole life you can have a regret that I could have helped my fellow soldier, but I allowed him to die. Are you able to appreciate this point? Helping that wounded soldier has a challenge. The challenge is you also die. Not helping him has also a challenge. If you don't help him, he will surely die. But you may suffer if you are a very conscientious soldier. You may suffer the pain in your heart thinking that I could have helped my fellow soldier, but I did not. And that pain can overwhelm a very sincere soldier, right? And we all know that Vikram Batra took the step of helping that soldier. And he lost his life in the process, right? He was shot at that particular time. That's the story. Okay, so this is Dondua. You're caught between a rock and a hard place. It's a very difficult choice to make at that time because both options come with a flip side. Okay. So that's why you will see sometimes that even great people in their life also, they take some decisions which apparently seem very difficult to justify. Okay, just like if you see Shivaji Maharaj, just going back to Shivaji's times, Shivaji Maharaj took the step of raiding Surat, if you know the story, correct? He raided Surat and he and the Maratha soldiers, they looted the gold, jewels, everything from the various merchants in Surat. Now, many people today, or many people, historians, they sometimes feel that Shivaji is such a nice king, he is a very famous Dharmic Raja. Why did he do the act of looting a city? So you need to understand that, see, even a noble king sometimes has to take cruel decisions in life. It's not possible that you can be, you will do everything that is perfect, picture perfect in life. Aisa ho hi nahi sakta. You have to take some decisions which history may sometimes criticize you, but at that time, that is the right thing to do. So in Shivaji Maharaj's time, they really needed wealth at that time. So you may say that, but then how can you loot like that? So that looting which they did did not become Shivaji Maharaj's habit. They did that in one instance because without that, Hindavi Swaraj would have never got established. Okay, so they had to do that. But at the same time, they made some rules that, okay, we will not kill anybody, so on and so forth. But looting they had to do, because without that, they were at a serious disadvantage. Because without money, they couldn't continue their, without wealth, they couldn't continue their fight against the Mughal rule. And if they had not fought, then today perhaps, India wouldn't itself exist. We would all be part of a large Pakistan only, right? So the point is that even sometimes a good person, a good king, has to take decisions like these, which seem very harsh or cruel, because that is Dondua. Everything comes with a flip side. You can't be a king and think that you will only do goody things. You will have to take harsh decisions. You will have to take decisions that seem cruel. You may have to take decisions that history may criticize you for, but there's no choice, right? So just like even if you take today's India, just imagine, just hypothetically imagine in the, if you are in the footstep of the Prime Minister of India or the government, how difficult it is to take these decisions. Just like India took the decision of ensuring a complete lockdown during Corona. Was it an easy decision? I mean, just think about it. Because they enforced a lockdown, maybe the spread of Corona at least got limited. It was still progressing, but slowly the Corona was spreading. But by that time, the government could come up with vaccination program, etc. On the other hand, that lockdown brought so many challenges to people. So many people had to walk distances, right? So many people had so many challenges. That decision came with a flip side, but still they had to bite the bullet. They took the decision. Okay, or if you consider the farmers' protest and the bills, which the farm laws that the government undertook a couple years ago, they did that with good intentions of market-free economy, etc. But then there was a backlash. And the backlash was such that it seemed that there can be so many security challenges to the country, because of which they withdrew it. Okay, they withdrew the bills. Okay, so that withdrawing also had some consequences. Even today, if you see our agriculture setup which is there, it is caught up in some 19th century ideas which the British had instituted in India. Okay, so modernization has not been possible so easily. Okay, so this is a challenge. Anything you do, there is a challenge. You do it, there is a challenge. You don't do it, there is a challenge. Okay, similarly, like so many marriages, for example, end in divorce. So it's never an easy decision. Okay, so sometimes living with a person has some problems, but then breaking the marriage has a different set of problems, which people aren't actually conscious at that particular time, right? Anyway, so at this point, I think I have given sufficient examples to tell you that Dvandva or duality is going to be part of our life in any event. Now, I want to bring your attention to another point, okay, before we go into the solution part. That what about qualities? Sometimes we look for certain qualities in individuals. So some qualities seem very attractive to us. Let's say somebody is determined. We generally glorify determination as a very nice quality, right? He is determined in life. That's something great, we may say. But the point is the same determination can sometimes become like stubbornness. That determination, that is the flip side of determination. Okay, determination is a very noble quality, but suddenly it could appear as if this person's determination is more like stubbornness, and stubbornness clearly isn't something great. So what I want to say is, even a good quality can simultaneously have a flip side. Okay, like another good quality, innocence. Like we all like people who are innocent by nature, simple and innocent. We say, oh, this person is so simple and innocent. Right? But then that innocence could also mean that that person is foolish, he can be exploited easily and so on. That's the flip side of being innocent. On the other hand, we say that somebody is very flexible in life, so that's something great. But flexibility sometimes can mean very watered down, as in no principles only. No firm stand on any issue. So flexibility may seem good at one level, but the same flexibility can have a problem also. Or love. Love can be seen as a very noble quality. Someone loves someone, then we say, oh, this person loves him so much. But the same love can translate into possessiveness or offense, right? Like if you know in Rama, in the story of when Ram is allured into the forest due to Marich, the deer, at that time what happens is Sita, so we know, if you know the story, when Ram goes in search of that deer which Sita wanted, Ram tells Lakshman to take care of Sita. And when Ram goes behind the deer who is actually Marich in disguise, when he's about to die, he starts shouting in a loud voice, Hey Sita, hey Lakshman, in the voice of Ram. Okay, so here Sita suddenly hears that Ram is calling for Lakshman. So she tells Lakshman that go and help him, Ram. So Lakshman says that no, this is not Ram's voice. This is most likely Marich only who's doing all these tricks. So Sita at that time, she starts speaking very cruel words. She tells Lakshman, hey Lakshman, I know why you came to the forest in the first place. You came with us to the forest thinking that one day Ram will die and then you can enjoy me. But I'm not going to allow you to enjoy me. I'm going to immediately kill myself. So when Lakshman heard this, he thought, oh my God, what are you talking? I had no such intention. I'm not even thinking anything like that. So the point is, it was Sita's love for Ram that made her offend Lakshmana, right? Offend as in speak such things to him. Okay, so love can be a very good quality, but it can have a flip side. Okay, so the point I'm trying to say here is any good quality can also have a flip side, right? So this is Dvandva. So I hope we have emphasized on this. So now the point is how to deal with Dvandva. Okay, so this is the second part. So I think I'll need another 10 minutes to complete. Okay, so the first thing which Krishna says is tolerate the flip side. That means any quality, any individual, any situation, any decision in life will have a flip side. And what do we need to do? Tolerate it. Tam stitikshasva bharata. Titiksha means you have to tolerate. You cannot escape from it, right? So basically, most of the time, life is about choosing the lesser of the two evils. So please try to understand this. So when we say Dvandva means there is a flip side or there are two options, it doesn't mean that you can take any option and tolerate. You have to choose the lesser of the two evils. Going back to Arjuna's story, one may say, okay, fighting the war was painful for Arjuna. Giving up the war also could have been more painful for Arjuna. Anyway, if Arjuna has to tolerate only, why not give up the war and tolerate? The answer is, you have to choose the lesser of the two evils. The lesser of the two evils is actually to fight the war, okay, and tolerate fighting grandfather and teacher. Not fighting the war means for Arjun, whole life is going to be criticized and scorned by people, which would be more painful. So that is what Krishna is saying. That means not fighting the war would be a bigger evil for Arjuna than fighting the war. Okay, so this is what it means by saying choosing the lesser of the two evils. The lesser of the two evils was to tolerate the pain of having to kill your grandfather, rather than tolerate the pain of being insulted your whole life, where people will call you coward. Okay, so similarly in every situation, okay, you have to choose between the lesser of two evils in life. More importantly, there is something called path of dharma, which one has to be conscious of. Now, this dharma itself is a very big term. In fact, we would have a session, or we will have to talk a lot about it. But dharma means, in short, what I want to use it here is dharma. The right thing to do at every step in life is called as dharma. Okay, in any situation in life, there is something which is what is called as the right thing to do as per your nature. Now, going back to the story of Arjuna, Arjuna is a Kshatriya. As a Kshatriya, he is meant to rule. He is meant to be part of politics. He can't give that up and go to the forest and sit. Okay. So he has to choose the option which is in line with dharma. Okay. And to And the option in line with his dharma as a Kshatriya was to fight the battle. It was not to run away from the battle. Okay. So that is why that option has to be chosen. Even if it is painful, tolerate it. Don't choose the other option, because that is not in line with dharma. Now, if you go to Ram's example, the choice of Ram was either to stay with your wife and Sita and he can be happy, or he has to, sacrifice being with Sita, but then that will help him being the king. Now, the point is for Ram at that point of time in his life, the dharma of being a king became very important. Okay, because that was a role he chose to take on when he came to this world. He had had a good time with Sita for so many years, and he would certainly love to have that as well. But for a king, his public life becomes more important than private life. So that becomes dharma at that time. Similarly, for Tanaji, the dharma towards Shivaji Maharaj, towards Swarajya was higher and more important than the marriage of his son. The marriage of his son was a personal matter, Raiba's wedding. Okay. But this was something that couldn't be sacrificed. So dharma, that means the more important among the two, something that will have larger consequence. Okay. So that is how you are supposed to take decisions. Yes, either decision you take, there is going to be some pain. But choose a decision which in the larger context of life is going to align with dharma. Similarly, going back to Shivaji Maharaj's life, attacking Surat would have certainly got infamy or criticism. But then if you don't attack Surat and you try to be Satyavadi Harishchandra, then it basically means you will never have any wealth sufficient to fight the Mughals, which basically means you have to give up your dream of Hindavi Swaraj, which basically means that the Mughals will take over everything and that's it. Okay. So some hard decisions have to be taken at that particular time, right? So the lesson, so at that time for Shivaji Maharaj, actually, maybe you could say that looting Surat was a lesser evil than not looting. Though it seems, how can it be possible? Because if he did not, then perhaps his whole Swarajya would have been finished at that time itself. Okay. So the point is, you deal with Dvandva by choosing the lesser of the two evils, by thinking about consequences, by thinking about which is more in line with dharma. And dharma means what? My own nature, my contribution to the world itself. Okay, the bigger picture of my contribution to the world, etc. And how that is going to play out. So these are some things that one has to keep in mind when we are dealing with duality. And this is going to apply in each of your lives at every step. Now one may say, okay, what happens if I do not handle Dvandva carefully? Okay, so please try to understand. On one hand, we must handle Dvandva, and if you don't, there are some problems. First thing is, you can become very frustrated or indecisive in life if you don't know how to handle duality. And that's exactly what was happening to Arjuna. He was getting very frustrated when he was standing over there, when the war was about to begin, thinking that how can I fight? And that was leading to indecision. And this indecision or frustration, in the worst case, it can become depression, it can lead to suicidal thoughts and so on, where a person thinks that it's better to end my life. And so many people, if you see world over, kill themselves each day. I'm sure as we were giving this talk today, so many people would have died by suicide in the world. That is the way the statistics are, right? So it basically means that there are so many people who are unable to handle the pressure of the flip side of their decision. And they end up being frustrated, depressed, and taking away their life. So this is what happens when you're unable to handle duality. You become very restless in your life. And sometimes you get carried away by others' strategy in decision-making process. Please remember, this was happening to Arjuna, right? If you go back to the story of Arjuna, Arjuna was thinking it is better to be like a Brahman in a forest rather than a Kshatriya. Because he was thinking, if I'm a Kshatriya, then I have to fight my grandfather. But if I live life like a Brahmin, I can nicely sit in the forest, or I can be a teacher and I don't have to fight my grandfather. But the point is, that is another person's strategy. Being a teacher has its own Dvandva. You cannot think that you will be a teacher and you will escape from the problems of a Kshatriya. No, because your nature is to be a Kshatriya. Your, as in this case, Arjuna's nature. It is to be a Kshatriya. So he cannot get carried away by another fellow's strategy in decision making process. Similarly, each of us, you choose a particular career as per your nature primarily, not according to another's nature. You can't think that, oh, the other fellow's job is so nice, I'll take it. No, you may not be able to handle the consequences of that, right? And another important thing is, if we are unable to handle Dvandva, we end up praying to God to remove duality in our life instead of asking for strength to deal with the same. Okay, so ideally our prayer to God should be, please give me strength to handle my challenges, rather than asking God to remove challenges, because that's a foolish prayer. It can never happen that the duality will go, because the world is like sukha, dukkha, labha, alabha. These things keep coming, right? And that brings us to the last point for the day. Okay, so what is actually the take-home message? Okay, so the first thing is, taking decisions in life is always a challenge for each of us because of this concept of duality. It is always like that. It's never going to be easy. It was never easy for Arjuna. It is never easy for you and me ever, right? But still we have to take a decision, because not taking a decision also has its own set of consequences. The second take-home message I wanted to say is, look at the larger picture of life. Okay, like I told you in Shivaji Maharaj's case, the larger, the lesser of the two evils while taking decision. Okay, so a relationship, somebody got married. In every marriage, there is going to be a problem. It is never going to happen that you get married to someone in life and everything is good in that marriage. ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता. But it doesn't again mean that for petty things, or we forget to tolerate, and for petty reasons one takes the path of divorce. Okay, if it is really unavoidable and if it is too painful, that may be a different thing. But many times it is observed in society that even for petty issues, people just separate without thinking about the consequence of separation. Okay, so just like staying together as a consequence in a marriage, separating also has a consequence, and not remaining married, is not getting married also has a consequence. So each thing comes with a consequence. So that is why the Gita urges us to consider dharma of the various roles we play. Okay, so there is something called dharma. Every role we play as a dharma. As a king, Ram has a dharma. Shivaji had a dharma. As a politician, Narendra Modi has a dharma. You and me, whatever roles we have in our life, I'm a teacher, you may be a software engineer, somebody may be something. Everything has a dharma, and it has an impact on on ourselves, on family, society. So we have to think about that, because that will help you identify the bigger picture. And no matter what, never forget to tolerate the consequences of your action, your decision. You cannot give up life. Nobody can be a coward, right? Becoming depressed, thinking suicidal, etc. You cannot do that. You have to learn to tolerate the consequences of action, what Krishna said. And the last but most important, one has to work towards becoming a yogi to fulfill one's spiritual purpose of life. As in, life has a very important purpose, which is basically the spiritual growth of the individual. Okay, so human life is very valuable because it is going to help you and me in our spiritual quest. And everyone, so the Gita talks about this concept of becoming a yogi. A yogi means a spiritual seeker. Okay, a spiritual practitioner. And so our routine life, which is there, our daily life, if we are going to get too disturbed by it, then we cannot actually practice yoga, because to be a yogi, one needs to have some stability of mind and body. And such a stability cannot come if I'm going to get too overwhelmed and too affected by small things in life, and if I don't tolerate it. Okay, so basically, since life's bigger purpose is the spiritual need of the person, and I need to give that a priority, I have to understand that I have to tolerate whatever inconveniences, small or big, may come in my life, and continue this fight. Okay, so this is the first theme. which I wanted to take, which is related, as I said, to Dvandva. Right. So at this point, I think I'm done. I exceeded about 10-15 minutes, whatever I planned. If anyone has any question, you could actually raise your hand and I can ask you to unmute and we could have a discussion. Anyone with any question on this theme that we discussed? Yeah, Sampada. So, yeah, 1 second. Yeah, Sampada can go ahead, I think, but I have to give rights to unmute. Just give me a second. Yeah, I permitted unmute. So, Sampada, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Yes. First of all, sir, this is very apt topic you have chosen, and it is like very realistic. So I have a question. Like, this dilemma comes into life like every time for like small decisions and large decisions. And when you said that we have to think of a larger picture of life, so at that time there comes like at what time we should stop analyzing. I mean, there comes the picture of unknowns, like as we do more analysis of both like positives and negatives of one decision and other decision, as we keep on thinking, the unknowns keep on reducing, but still there is a number that few unknowns will be there. I mean, if we take example of Arjun, like Gita itself, that in the beginning he didn't know anything, but as soon as the adhyay keep on going, increasing, then he like the unknowns are getting reduced. So if we relate to in our real life for any particular decision, then when is it the right time to like take a decision and stop analyzing, and how many unknowns are good amount of unknowns?
Yeah, I understood the point. Okay, see, it's like this. Um, Taking a decision either way, and remember, not taking a decision or postponing something is also a decision, okay, which has its own consequence.
Yeah.
So I'll just take an example. I don't know, I'll just take an example, just some hypothetical example I'll take to illustrate the point. Let's say someone is thinking about marriage, some XYZ person, okay. So if you're thinking about marriage, then let's say, again, there are 2-3 things, whether to get married, okay, whether to get married right now or push it to another 2-3 years. So that also becomes a decision, correct? Either you get married now, that has a consequence. If I postpone, it has some consequences. Okay, if I postpone indefinitely, that has another set of consequences. Okay, so the thing is, so in this particular example of marriage itself, and then again, as proposals come for a person for marriage, so let's say someone is trying an arranged marriage, he has registered on, he or she has registered on some shadi.com or whatever. So many proposals are coming. Each proposal will have a flip side, right? Because life is never going to be such that one proposal will have everything that we ever dreamt of in life. ऐसा तो कभी होता नहीं है. That is only in movie they show like that. In real life, it will never happen like that. Every case that comes for a proposal that comes for marriage comes with its own bag of plus and minus. Okay. So the thing is, okay, right. So it is important, certainly it is important to analyze. Okay, certainly it is important to analyze because one cannot simply jump in mindlessly like that. But at the same time, how long? Okay. So yes, so depending on the particular point under consideration, one may give a particular time for it. Okay, so when it is marriage, then yes, one may take a couple of years maybe to decide whom should I marry or whatever. But some decisions have to be done very quickly. Imagine you are applying for a job. There are 2 jobs, and you are getting both jobs, and you have to answer by Monday. Okay, so today is Friday, let's say, or today is Wednesday or something. By Saturday, you have to confirm whether you are joining X company or Y company. So there, the window to analyze is less. Okay, so life is, and for Arjuna's case, the window was even less. Everybody had already come in the battlefield and the war is about to begin. At that time, this guy is thinking whether I should fight or no. So for him, the window is even less. He cannot say that I will decide by tomorrow whether I want to fight. He has to decide in that next 10 minutes or whatever, right? Either he fights or he quits. It's not that he's even going to have 2 days. So life is going to be such that for some events, you can analyze maximum 10-20 minutes, half an hour, like Arjun's case. Some decisions like job, maybe you'll have a week to decide before you analyze and come to the conclusion. Some other decisions like marriage, maybe a person may take 1 or 2 years to decide. But again, that cannot be that you are deciding for 1 or 2 decades, right? So my point is, depending on the nature of that event, the amount of time available for us to analyze can vary from 10 minutes to a couple of years or more or whatever, right? Or it can even be more if you take some other example. Okay, but the point is there will be a deadline. Okay, everything has a deadline. It cannot happen that you're endlessly analyzing. Because the thing is, if you're endlessly analyzing, it means you are unconsciously searching for a hypothetical ideal situation, which never happens in the world. ऐसा कुछ आइडियल नहीं, कोई आइडियल जॉब नहीं, कोई आइडियल हस्बैंड नहीं, कोई आइडियल वाइफ नहीं है, कोई आइडियल सिचुएशन है ही नहीं, कोई आइडियल क्वालिटी नहीं है लाइफ में. Okay, nothing in life is quote unquote ideal where there is no flip side. ऐसा तो हो ही नहीं सकता. So if somebody is analyzing some event or some decision beyond a particular amount of time that it should take, it means that you are subconsciously searching for an ideal that doesn't exist, which is fundamentally a problem. Which means that you are not willing to tolerate some gaps that will be there in every decision. So that is why the tolerance becomes important. Okay, any job I take, any husband or wife I get married to, any government I have in the center, everything will have some flip sides, some challenges with it. And that part I have to tolerate. Okay. Does that make sense, Sampada?
Yes, totally. Like, I have one more follow-up question, like for that. So you have mentioned the evils, like the lesser of evils. So like labeling something as an evil is also a relative term. I mean, if we take example of switching a company or choosing between MS or MBA, then like if we write down pros and cons, then at that time, what is an evil? So any points on that?
No. Evil means the flip side. Evil means the negative of that. If you're going to switch a company, see, every company has an evil. Evil as in something negative is there now in everything.
Yeah,
that's what I'm calling as the evil. The evil is the negative thing, or I would say the evil is also in terms of the consequence in a larger sense. Like if you go back to the situation of Arjuna, if he fights, then he may get the kingdom. If he doesn't, Duryodhana will be the king. Okay, so which is the lesser evil? That Bhishma is killed and Pandavas become king, or Pandavas stop fighting and Duryodhana remains the king. So both, some evil is there. Correct? The evil is if Pandavas have to become king, they have to kill Bhishma and Drona. Okay, so that's like an evil, you can say, because they were nice people, but unfortunately they were on the wrong side. But if these fellows don't fight, then Duryodhana will remain king. So which is the bigger evil here? Okay, so that's the point here. So even in the other examples that I took, everything has some evil, right? The government decides farm laws. If the farm laws are not implemented, there is an evil because you are stuck in some old 100-year-old system. But if it is trying to implement it, then people are afraid. What will happen? This, that. So there is protest. There are so many things. Okay. So it's like that. Life is always like that. Whether it is at individual level or at big level, any level, it is like that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So who is that? Oh, yeah, Anish. Go ahead. I think you can unmute yourself.
So my question is, you told us to, while dealing with Dvandva, we have to think of a bigger picture. But I have a question that how much bigger picture, like in terms of place, time, or people we have to think of? Like, for example, there are placements coming So you don't take mock interview of COEP students when company is going to come to VIT, or when the interviews are for 2025 batch, we don't consider 2026 batch. So while thinking of the bigger picture, uh, like what should be the time stands, or how much people should we consider?
Yeah, I got your point. See, I would put it like this. Since you took the example of job, I'll take that example only and tell you. The bigger picture, as in, let's say you have two career opportunities. So basically, I mean, the whole thing of duality comes only when you have two options. If you don't have two options, then duality doesn't come into picture. But let's say there are two types of jobs that you're about to get. The bigger picture, as in that case, you have to think which job is something which is more suitable to your own nature and where you see a better long-term career path. Okay. So please try to understand, in short term, something may seem more nice. So let's say one job is in your own city or the city you like, and another job is in some faraway place which you don't like to go. Okay. But maybe that job has, or sometimes it also happens, I'll tell you honestly, that some job offers more money, but the role and the career in it is not that great. But another job may be offering slightly less money. I have seen like that. Sometimes there are companies that offer 15 lakhs, some job, but that role isn't too good actually. But there's another company that may be offering only 8 or 10 lakhs, but sometimes the role can be very good. The experience in that can be very good, right? So one point I'm saying here is look at the bigger picture now in this case, because we are giving the example of company. This is related, bigger picture is related only to your career. That becomes the bigger picture. It is not, you're not thinking about how the country or the world can be saved, correct? So in this context, the bigger picture becomes your career. So you'll have to think from the bigger picture perspective. Does that make sense, Anish?
Yes, yes, sir, I got it about the job, but like uh, about job, we have uh, like placement officers for guidance. For Arjuna to think of bigger picture, there was Krishna, but in some kind of duels, there is no one to guide us about the bigger picture. We have to analyze on our own itself. So
Yeah.
at that time, how much bigger should we
Yeah,
think?
good point. Good point. Actually, this is another important lesson we can take from today's message, that we should always have some people whom we can confide with and discuss our problems. I think that's very important. Arjuna had Krishna. We may not have Krishna himself, but it may be our mother, it may be a teacher, it may be a mentor. You know, a mentor or a coach is very important in life sometimes. You need a coach or a mentor,
Yes, sir.
who can sometimes, because what happens is when we think ourselves, at times it can happen that we don't think about the other side very carefully. A neutral observer may be able to say better. They say na neutral empire, third empire, neutral empire bolte na. It doesn't belong to both countries. So he's able to take a more balanced, he's able to give a more balanced picture to the solution. So I think it is important that all of us must have some mentor or a coach in our life. And let me tell you, that can even be your family member. It can be your mom, it can be your dad, it can be your brother, it can be your neighbor, it can be someone who has some kind of maturity, at least slightly more than you, and who can help you with the vision. And if that person is in alignment with dharma, that's even better. Like in this case, Arjuna had Krishna, who was, the best of all among dharmic people, because he was supreme dharma, param dharma, right? So because then that person, he's not only going to give the bigger picture in terms of just money or something, which again becomes small in relation to life itself, which where all aspects, whether it is, as I was telling you in the last part of my session, even spirituality is something that that person may consider like that. So a mentor or a coach always helps. That's my bottom line. Okay.
Okay, sir, got it.
Yeah. Thank you. Any last question we'll take and then we'll stop. Let me just see. I think there's somebody who's put something on the chat. Is there anything on chat? Okay. Okay, so there's the last question, Anjali. So with that, Anjali, we will stop. Yeah, Anjali, go ahead. Yeah, have unmuted.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. So, sir, whenever we make a decision, let's say I have two choices and I need to make a decision of choosing one among them. So, even after analyzing properly and even after making the right decision, you will always have a regret of not making the another decision. So, how do we deal with that?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we will have this strong regret, especially when things go wrong. We feel like if at all I had made another decision, then um, things have been much better at this moment. So how do we deal with that?
Very good, very good. Yeah, Anjali, thank you for that. Very good point. In fact, if you go back to our example of Arjun that we are taking from Mahabharata, that's exactly what happens. Arjun, see, at the end of hearing Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna decided he will fight. But do you think it was easy for him to kill Bhishma and Drona? No, it wasn't. Repeatedly, when he had to actually kill them, he was crying. Again, he was crying. Not only in the beginning. Okay. Later also he was crying, Arey, why I had to do this? As you are saying, why did I become a Kshatriya in the first place? I should have given up this profession long back. How can I kill like this my grandfather? So my point is, even when you take a decision, that still remains in your mind that, Arey, that option was there, that option was there, I could have done that. But then in Arjuna's case, he knew that he had to move on. See, that's what life is. You take a decision and you go ahead in that. Okay, this whole thing, you first of all, even practically, most of the time, you cannot retract decisions made in life. Just like you have joined a college or you have joined a course. Okay, now that you have joined a college, it's not easy to think that, oh, I could have gotten another college. Now you may say that, okay, I can leave the college even after first year of engineering, let us say, and join another college. It's possible. But then that comes with its own flip side. You lose 1 year and so on and so forth. So my point is, see, again, this is also again happening sometimes because we are not tolerating. These are all, the after effects. In one point, I wish to tell you that because we are unable to tolerate the consequence of our decision, we are forced to think, "Arey, wo option acha tha mere paas, wo bhi tha." And because of that, what is happening? Your performance in the current option also is reducing. As in, like you take a job or you join a college or you get married, and then you're thinking, oh, I had the other option also to get married. Why did I marry this person? But then what happens is you're not focusing in your current relationship, and unnecessarily you're thinking about something which is now not existing only, literally. And then breaking this up and going to that other decision is again very complicated. It comes with an even bigger set of duality. So I think that, decision-making process ideally should be such, at least in major decisions in life, where we are able to move on with the decision that we have taken and try to find newer options from that path. So let's say college or career. You took one option. Later you may be thinking that, oh, I should have taken another option. No, don't think about that. Rather think from now how you will go to that. As in, how you will progress in a way which will make life more meaningful. So see, at the last, what I wish to say, the last point I wish to make, certainly in life, one goal of life is to reduce duality. Please try to understand. Reduce duality means what? Reduce the gap between decision and consequence so that you are very comfortable with what you're doing. This is indeed a goal of life. But practically, duality will never become zero. It can reduce. मतलब इतना duality से इतना कम कर सकते हो, लेकिन थोड़ा तो duality रहेगा ही हमेशा. That is life. Okay. So as we go ahead in life, we keep making dynamic decisions. We need to see how it is so much in alignment with my nature that that gap is minimal. So that's why, the Gita focuses on some concept which we are going to talk next week called Swadharma. Swadharma means take any decision that is in maximum alignment with your nature. So please try to understand. As Anjali, you have a particular nature. take decisions in life which is in alignment with that. Because when you do that, because any activity that you do which is in alignment with your nature, when you do that activity, you don't feel so much pressure. Are you understanding my point? Suppose, let's say I like mathematics, and suppose my teacher has, I choose mathematics as my major, and my teacher has given me 100 mathematics problems to solve. But because I like mathematics by my own nature, solving 100 problems of mathematics is not a pain in my neck, because I like doing it. So there is less dondua, you understand? But if I don't like mathematics only in the first place, I like history, and I am forced to do mathematics because my father or mother told me to do it. Now mathematics, 100 problems, even 10 problems look like a big mountain, because it is not in line with my nature. So one thing again the Bhagavad Gita teaches us is that we choose decisions in line with your nature, and that your nature is called Swadharma. That is also part of Dharma. So if you remember, I mentioned earlier, right? Take decisions in alignment with Dharma. That Dharma is not just some religion or something, it is your Swadharma also. That means your own nature. When you do that, then at least that gap will be less. And when the gap is less, tolerating becomes easy. See, even if I like mathematics, if I have to solve 100 problems of math every time, I will not be very excited. I may also, even as a mathematician, I may get bored. I may feel that I don't want to solve so much. But it is easy for me to tolerate it because it is in my nature. But if I am a history person, I like history only, and I have to solve all this integration, then the gap becomes too much, and then tolerating becomes almost impossible. Okay, so we have to also be realistic with ourselves and take decisions where our need to tolerate is within tolerable limits, and not to the extent where it becomes too difficult. I hope that answers, Anjali.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. We will meet tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We have our second session tomorrow. We have another topic called diversity, which we will see tomorrow. Okay, so I hope I didn't, I did exceed my time. I thought I will cover in 1 hour, but I just overshot. Okay, thank you very much for your kind attention.